Today, we're going to talk about a generation that's often overlooked, kind of wedged between the boomers and the millennials, Generation X. And we're going to get into the really unique, almost unbreakable psychology that was forged by a childhood that, well, no other generation really had. Seriously, think about it for a second. When things are going completely sideways and you see some people freaking out, others are just spiraling. But have you ever noticed there's usually one person in the room who seems weirdly calm, almost unfazed? And no, they're not in shock. They haven't checked out. They are just quietly watching it all burn, probably with a little smirk. Well, chances are that person is from Gen X. And the reason why they're like that, well, that's a story that starts in empty houses and really, really quiet afternoons. So first, let's really look at this idea of the calm in the chaos, because what makes Gen X such a psychological anomaly is how they react when everything hits the fan. It's a reaction that is completely different from the generations on either side of them. So here's the breakdown. A huge crisis hits. For many, the first instinct is to panic, right? The frantic texts start flying, the emotional spirals begin. But for Gen X, the default setting is this grim, cynical calm. And the reason for that has nothing to do with what's happening now, and everything to do with the world they had to face alone when they were kids. And that brings us to their origin story. See, to understand the unbreakable adult, you absolutely have to meet the child who was pretty much left to figure things out on their own, the Latchkey kid. Let's just paint a picture of the 70s and 80s for a minute. Divorce rates were hitting all-time highs. Economic pressures meant both parents were often working and working longer hours. And the results of all that? Millions and millions of kids came home from school every single day to a totally empty house. This image is it's so powerful because it was the reality for so many. That key on a string around their neck, it wasn't just a piece of metal. It was a symbol of some heavy, forced responsibility. It basically said, you are in charge now, in charge of your own safety, your own dinner, your own everything for hours at a time, with zero adult supervision. And think about what that does to you emotionally. When there's no one home to ask, hey, how was your day? Feelings just become your own private problem. If you were scared or lonely or you got hurt, you just learned to swallow it. Sharing wasn't really on the table. And this created this deep emotional self-reliance that you still see in them today. So these were the unwritten rules they grew up with. This wasn't a list on the fridge. It was a brutal survival guide they learned from experience. If you get hurt, you find the bandages. If you're sad, you deal with it. If you need help, well, you learn not to expect it. And the core lesson, the one that got burned into their brains, was that last one. No one is coming to save you. You're on your own, kid. Now, all of this entire childhood, it built a really powerful defense mechanism. It's like an armor of independence. This upbringing didn't just teach them skills. It literally rewired their brains for extreme self-reliance. Okay, so there's actually a clinical term for this, the hyperindependence trauma response. It's what happens when a kid learns early on that the adults in their life are inconsistent or just not there. The brain adapts. It starts to see vulnerability not just as an emotional risk, but as an actual physical threat. And the safest you can possibly feel when you are completely and totally self-sufficient. And you can see how this plays out in adulthood. They have this built-in distrust of authority, because why would they trust it? They're really hard to manipulate because they don't look to others for validation. And this is a big one. They hate asking for help. They'll often look at an offer of help and their first thought is, okay, what do you want from me? You can see this so clearly in a place like the office. Let's say some huge corporate crisis hits. You'll get panic, you'll get anger, and then you'll get the Gen Xer in the corner making a deeply sarcastic joke about the whole thing. I mean, when you've survived total emotional isolation as a 10-year-old, a bad earnings report is just another Tuesday. But, and this is a really big but, this incredible psychological armor, it comes at a very high cost. The very same shield that helped them survive can, over time, become a cage, one that locks them away from real human connection. And here's the fundamental trade-off. The upside is obvious, right? They have this incredible resilience, this amazing self-reliance. But the downside is a profound emotional isolation. Because they refuse to let anyone in or to show that they're struggling, they end up carrying these enormous burdens all by themselves in total silence. And man, this quote just hits it right on the head. That armor made them into incredible survivors, no doubt about it, but there is a world of difference between just surviving and actually truly living a connected and emotionally open life. So, what's the path forward here? For Gen X themselves and for the people who love them, it's all about learning how to very carefully and very cautiously let that shield down, even just a little bit. So if you're a Gen Xer and this is resonating, the first step is just to recognize that these survival reflexes might be a little outdated now. You're not that kid alone in the house anymore. From there, you can try practicing something called micro-vulnerability. It's going to feel super uncomfortable, but try it. Let someone do a tiny favor for you. Let a person you really trust see just a tiny crack in the armor. It's how you start to let go of decades of pressure. And hey, if you love someone from Gen X, this is your playbook. Rule number 1, and it's a big one, never ever try to force them to open up. That's a surefire way to make them shut down completely. Instead, you show loyalty through action, over time. Be the person who consistently shows up. Actions mean everything, words can be cheap. Give them their space and understand that their trust has to be earned over a very long time. You can never demand it. So Generation X essentially traded their childhood vulnerability for this unbreakable shield. And yeah, it made them the most resilient, capable people in any room. But it all comes down to this one final question for them and maybe for all of us. At what point does the armor that was built to help you survive actually start stopping you from being able to truly live?